Hey guys, Mike here with Wild Utah Edibles. On a scouting trip, I came up to Ogden to take a look at North Fork Park on a suggestion. And as you can see, it is not looking like a great time of year to be doing any foraging or identification even up here, because there's such deep snow. The only thing that you can really see is scrub oak, gamble oak. And there isn't much you're going to be eating from that this time of year. So I think if we were to go off trail here and look in the leaves, we'd probably see something growing starting just underneath the leaves. However, looking at the pristine conditions off trail here, I'm thinking that overall people in this area might not smile on me making deep holes in the snow to walk over and look under the leaves, so I'm not going to do that here. So this will be a prime location for summer, so we'll definitely come back to it. You know, it's interesting as you start looking that you'll see more than you expect. And so I'm walking out of here thinking, nah, I'm not going to walk up here. There's not going to be much to see. And of course there is. There's a lot of trees. We've got a lot of firs and spruce up there, some pines. But here I am looking at this at a glance and saying, oh, all we've got here is a whole bunch of scrub oak. And I start walking out, and can any of you see what I saw? What is it that we're looking at right here? So I saw those plants and realized, oh, wait a minute, there is some more to talk about. So this is what you will see for elderberry in the winter. And as a matter of fact, I just noticed here that if you look right up on, I don't know if it'll show up on the camera here, but yeah, right there, we've got the sprig of where the berries were from last year, and there aren't any berries left on it. Although I'll have to say I'm a little surprised that somebody hasn't come up here and harvested all of those. Those shouldn't be there at all if this is a heavily harvested area, because this is quite the patch of elderberry right here. So that was kind of cool. And then if you look at the hillside back behind it there, we can see on that hillside that's kind of starting to bear, well, there are some other plants there. And from this distance, I can actually identify curly cup gumweed, which is phenomenal for fighting the flu. And it's a wonderful edible and medicinal plant. So that much I can see from here. And of course, if we were to walk over there in snowshoes, mind you, at this time, there's going to be more plants that we could see. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll continue this as a little bit of a tour video, because there is actually more than just scrub oak, and I'm going to look a little closer and identify some of these things for you. So walking along the trail again, I see an elderberry branch sticking out of the snow right there. So this is a good place for elderberry. I see some dead elderberry back over there, and here you go. You're not going to pick this up on the wind, I'm pretty sure, but right there is a maple. So there I know it's a maple because of the leaves that are still left on the tree. You can still see the maple shape on those. So that's nice to see that, and I can look at that bark and kind of compare with the gamble oak to see different trees out here. Also look at the branching and the way the branches go. Maple is generally going to be a straighter growing tree, where gamble oak is going to bend a lot. And you see that with the gamble oak back behind there, where it's many branching and twisting branches, although some of those trunks down low are kind of straight in the beginning. So a little further down the trail, I start looking closer at some of these small growing trees that are poking up out of the snow, and they've got some buds starting on them, and I'm wondering what they are. They're kind of reddish on there. And then I saw leaves. leaves. So one of the things about identifying plants is you want to look at many different parts of them to help you identify. The reddish bark on this, combined with that leaf shape, and I pulled one off here that Ford's holding for me, tell me that this is a choke cherry. That's common in our area, so that's a cherry-looking leaf. We got the red, reddish tint to the bark, and then after I said, yeah, that's probably choke cherry, I looked down here, and we've got these cherries from last year. So sure enough, we got choke cherry growing up here, and it's going to be in areas with, when you're higher in the mountains, you've got areas with a lot of snow. When you get heavy snowpack, a lot of these trees, you'll see this with elderberry and with choke cherries, they just don't grow as big. These have obviously been cut because they're next to the trail, so there's that going on too, a lot of pruning happening that will make a difference. But you look back here and see all of these small growth, the new growth back over here. A lot of this is going to be that choke cherry, and it just doesn't get the opportunity to grow very tall. So I found another area here that was kind of surprising that I wanted to show. I'm probably going to have to do a voiceover on this. But if we look at these plants right here, we can see some mustard. One of those plants is a mustard plant. And I can tell because of the seed pod, the shape of it. That's a field mustard or brown mustard. So here's another common plant that we have in Utah that is one of my favorite trail snacks. Trail snacks is salsify. So that's last year's salsify. So I know that we'll have some salsify plants available here this next year. So I was driving by and I saw all of these plants out here along the road, and I thought I knew what they were. And I was thinking curly-cup gumweed, but they look a little bigger. So I stopped and I got out to go look at them, to look up close. And sure enough, they're not curly-cup gumweed. The flower tops are bigger than that. But it's interesting how you can spot things and get used to them. Even from a car driving down the road at who knows how many miles an hour. So I came over to the other side of the road and was continuing to drive down, and I believe it was right up here. And so I'm just going to show you this. So I came up here and felt that sure enough, these are gumweed. And so I don't know how well you can tell from the video from the car, but Ford, who is driving with me, he definitely was impressed, shall we say, that I could identify him from
eyes are trained for sure.
From a distance. But that's what happens when you get used to the plant in its many different stages, and just it's like knowing a friend. If you're driving down the road and you saw one of your friends, you would know, hey, that's Ford, you know, that's Joe. And that's kind of what happened here. Is I just got familiar enough with this plant, I've seen it in so many places, that even after thinking I had identified it across the road and then realizing I hadn't, I saw it over here and realized, oh yeah, that's curly-cup gumweed. So I'm going to get out and show you this one up close. One of these days I'll spend some money and get a better mic that will block out the wind, but So this is what I saw as I'm driving and I came past all of these right here. I saw that top of the curly cup gumweed, and again, once you know it, then it becomes very, very obvious what it is. And even dry like this, if you were to roll that in your hands, you're going to feel a little bit of the gumminess of the resin that's in the gumweed. All right, so Ford, I want you to take those and carefully just take one.
Just like this.
All right, so take one of those and just kind of start to break it apart. What are you feeling?
It's gummy.
Right?
Yeah,
This is a dead, dry plant.
That's a dead dry plant.
And you're
but
feeling the
it's
resin.
really gummy, like really kind of a sticky feeling. So Mike, with this curly cup gumweed that we just found on the side of the road, you said is good for like coronavirus or flu or anything like that. Explain, like, how do you prepare
Right.
it? How do you use it?
So this is one that if you know an herbalist, they'll talk to you.
Smells really good,
about
by
it.
the way.
It has a decent smell, actually, but really, really sticky. But yeah, if you know anybody who does practices, naturopathic herbalism, that knows a lot about herbs, they're going to tell you this is one of the best things for any coronavirus. So that includes COVID, of course, the common flu, any of the flus, the common cold. Those are all coronaviruses. Corona just meaning crown or outside of the cell. But the best way to use this, the best way is to make a tincture. And so you're going to use the flowers. So when they are in flower, which would be mid to late summer and maybe into the fall, bright yellow flowers, full of resin, gummy, sticky, flowers, and they're pretty dry because it's kind of a desert plant. And so you take collect a bunch of those flowers, dry them as dry as you can get them, and stuff them into a jar, and then cover it with vodka, high proof vodka or Everclear. That's how you make a tincture. And what happens, and then you stick it in the cupboard for a few weeks, and what happens with a tincture is it takes all of those constituents of the plant. That's the words that I use, but it's taking the medicinal properties out of the plant on a molecular level and pulls that into the alcohol, making it stable. And so that's how that used to be our medicine, right?
Yeah.
That used to be medicine, is we would take stuff like that, herbs that have the beneficial properties,
yeah.
put it into a stable format in alcohol, and then it's shelf stable. So then after a few weeks in the dark cupboard, you pour that through a sieve or a strainer,
cheesecloth or something.
Cheesecloth, something to hold all of the flour pieces out, right? And end up with just the alcohol that'll be colored at this point. It'll be a dark amber. And then that alcohol now is your medicine. And all you need is, a teaspoon at a time.
Yeah. And
you've got the medicine to fight the flu. Now that's the best way to use curly cup gumweed. You got to think about and recognize with these plants, there's a certain amount of that element, those microscopic bits, whatever you want to call it, that medicine within the plant, the constituents of the plant, they're throughout the entire plant. And so the whole plant is going to be beneficial for you. This is not a medicine to the point where it's a poison in high doses. Like aconite, Aconitum napellus is the monkhood flower, beautiful flower we have growing up in our mountains, and used as a homeopathic and energetic remedy. It's great because it's been diluted thousands of times down, and it's not poisonous. But if you were to eat the plant or the flower, you're going to be very, very sick, if not dead, from Aconitum. It's a very poisonous plant. This isn't like that. Curly cup gumweed is an edible. You can eat the leaves of that plant and it's not going to harm you, but it also has that benefit. So the next best alternative is if it's not in flower. So this could be spring, end of winter. It could be, in fact, I've seen it growing already, greens in Eagle Mountain in February.
Yeah.
So in some places you might have this growing in the winter. Yeah. So you could use those leaves and make an infusion. Another word that that people aren't real familiar with, what they are familiar with is the word tea. An infusion is taking an herb and putting hot water over it, and then letting it steep in that hot water.
Yeah,
and so you could do that if the flowers aren't in season, but the best way is
just as an aftershave for your loved one.
So with most of these plants, there are multiple ways that you can use it, but curly cup gumweed, that's one that I learned about in the last few years here, especially through 2020, that is incredibly beneficial, and it's not a drug.
Yeah.
It doesn't have side effects.
No side effects.
One of the best things of using herbs.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's another example of flying down the road and identifying something, and I had to stop and pull off, and so I'm going to do a little bit of this driving. So right there I'm seeing chicory root. So that's the chicory plant, and I've got some that I recorded the other day close up, but I saw chicory on the side there. And chicory is something that you can use as a coffee substitute. And so that's a good one to know. There's so much of it back there on that road that if you know it's there, you know how to identify it when it's dead, then you know you can come in spring and summer and find plenty of chicory there. And so you'll be able to prepare that if you wanted to have a chicory root drink, roasted chicory root, dandelion root in place of coffee or something, then that's an option for you if that's something that you're into. Chicory is also an edible green, so you can eat the greens when they're young, and they look a lot like dandelion. And this might be a good place to tell you that there are no deadly lookalikes to dandelion. So that leaves a lot open for greens. So for me, it's fun to be just driving down the road, and I don't just take a drive. I'm looking at every plant out there, and it goes into my brain and checking all the files, and what is it, identifying things as I'm driving 35 miles down the road, and even 70, 75 down the highway at times, because I've spent so much time with the plants and getting to know them. So most of what we're seeing here is just the gamble oak, some maples there I just saw as we drove by, and you can see those, recognize different bark on those. And then of course we've got the conifers up there, a lot of firs, and some of that is going to be the spruce. Most of it around here is probably the Colorado blue spruce. We just passed some pine there, and that's an interesting one to go and research so that you can know the difference between spruce and pine based on their needles. And so it takes a little close-up evaluation to really tell. You can't tell at a distance. They all just look like green pointy trees, right? But some of them you can tell at a bit of a distance just by getting familiar with the different aspects of the trees. So I'm not going to continue too much talking or stopping along this road, because it's a very narrow, winding highway with not a lot of places to stop. So enjoy the view for a moment.